Why am I nervous? Okay, let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome back to the DPT Diaries. My name is Yusra, I'm a physical therapist, and today I am answering all of your questions that you sent in on Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube about being a new grad physical therapist. I realize I'm not looking at the camera right now, but it's fine. I'd rather look at myself because I actually did my makeup today for once. We'll see if my hijab will cooperate with me. Okay, I am a new grad physical therapist. If you've been following my journey for a little while now, you know that I graduated from Duke University down in North Carolina. I now live in Indiana with my family and recently started a job as an outpatient physical therapist. I work in an outpatient setting where I see populations primarily dealing with issues around ortho, sports, pelvic health, and then I also see some neuro stuff as well. So it's been a really nice mixed bag for me, a lot of variety in my patients, lots of complexity in my patients, which is really cool as a new grad, just to kind of challenge myself and always keep me on my toes. So that is what I'm here to talk about today. I'm going to be splitting up everything that I talk about into 4 categories. So your questions primarily revolved around getting the job and the actual hiring process, mentorship, confidence, and then just what life in general is like as a new grad PT. And then in that last category, I'll probably throw in some like miscellaneous questions as well. Let's start with actually getting the job. We are in a global pandemic and it is not easy for a lot of people to find a job right now. So I do not take the fact that I was able to get a job at this time lightly. I don't take it for granted. I'm incredibly grateful. I know how lucky I am. I know how blessed I am. And I think that my situation and even my job are a little bit unique. My job is pretty different from what my rotations were like in this setting. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of do like a compare and contrast. So because my situation feels a little bit different than what I've heard from a lot of people, I'll also be telling you a little bit about how my friends did things because I think a lot of them went a little bit more of a traditional route. First question that came in was, how do you know which setting to pick? For me, going through clinical rotations, this was pretty easy. I had always seen myself in an outpatient setting. I do love acute care. I did really like my inpatient rehab rotation where I was primarily working with patients with spinal cord injury. It's something that I would love to do again at some point. But I knew that I was most confident in an outpatient setting. And so I felt like as a new grad where I feel like I don't really know a whole lot, being in a setting where I felt most comfortable and where I had spent the most time in my rotations was probably a good place to start out. I think I want to be an outpatient kind of forever. That can change, of course, but I feel like for me right now, ortho is really where I'm meant to be. And like I said, some of the patients who come in are not necessarily dealing with like primarily musculoskeletal issues. For some of them, it is more like neuro-driven, or it's something like developmental. And so I get a good mix while still being in a setting where I have kind of overall the most confidence. So in terms of how do you pick a setting, I would say like really pay attention on your clinical rotations. What is it that you like and don't like about those settings? Where do you seem to excel? Where are you most comfortable? Where do you look forward to going into work? Where are you kind of dreading it? And of course, like rotations don't tell you everything, right? Like sometimes you can't get a rotation in an area that you really want to work in, or sometimes rotations just don't go well, but that doesn't mean you're not meant to work there. So sometimes it takes some trial and error. I know people who've started out in one setting, moved to another, like the second one better, or vice versa. And I know some people who've been in the same setting forever. And I know people who left patient care. A lot of people that I know who have left patient care and gone on to do things like research and teaching. So I think one of the most important pieces of advice that one of my professors gave me, actually my MSK professor, was that your first job is likely not going to be your forever job. And so it's important and it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. And when I say it doesn't matter that much, I don't mean like the job itself doesn't matter. I just mean like if you get it wrong and you're like, oh, I don't actually want to be in this setting, like it's okay to change your mind. Okay, 2 people asked, how in the world did you find a job in a pandemic and how long did it take you to find a job? I'm proud of you. Thank you. So in terms of how long it took me to find a job, we were pulled from rotations, I think early April, late March. I moved in with my family in Indiana. One of the questions that came in was actually how I chose what state I was going to work in. My parents live here. I'm single, so I live with them, and that just seemed like the most logical, cheapest option. It didn't make sense for me to live somewhere else, pay for rent, and be by myself. I don't do well with being alone. And so even though most of my friends are still in North Carolina, I just felt like it made the most sense for me to come here. And actually, my main group of friends from Duke, only I think 2 people are left in North Carolina. The other 6 or so have since moved away. So I think it was a good call for me to go ahead and move in with my parents while I kind of figured out my next steps. So in terms of how I found the job, this is kind of an interesting story. I actually found the job through social media in a way. So I tweet a lot, and my now boss, I think first, and I don't want to put words in my employer's mouths at all. So this is just kind of a generic overview of how I perceived things going down. I think that the company saw my tweets first and saw that I was holding an official leadership position in the American Physical Therapy Association's student assembly. I was pretty consistent on Twitter talking about issues that were important to me and my values. And so initially, when I was in contact with the company, they told me that they weren't hiring. And especially in a pandemic, like a lot of people know, a lot of places are not hiring that might be otherwise. So it definitely was something where I had to kind of put that aside for a little while and say, okay, this sounds like a really great company to work for, but they're not hiring right now, and there's not a whole lot that I can do about that, so I'll just move on. Then I decided to kind of put all my eggs in that basket. I didn't actually apply anywhere else. There was no other city or state that I was willing to go to and move to and be alone. So I knew that if I got a job, I wanted it to be either where I already had a ton of friends or where I had my family. And with friends, moving and not being totally sure where they were going to be, it felt a little more risky for me to base my first job on that. So I did search jobs around the Duke area in North Carolina. There was a job available that I really did seriously consider interviewing for at Duke. But again, just not wanting to be away from my family, knowing that this was kind of my comfort zone. I was okay with staying within my comfort zone for a little bit. So I became pretty persistent. This is not official advice. I don't know what's going to work, for whatever company you want to work for. I was very lucky that I was able to identify a company I really wanted to work for. Just me not being from here, it was hard for me to kind of understand where would I even want to work in this area, because I didn't really know a lot of people. But I emailed the same people that had reached out to me initially just to kind of introduce themselves. I said, hey, I know you're not hiring, but would it be okay if I sent you my CV? And they were very nice about it. I said, sure. So I sent over my CV, and I can't remember, but I think I put a cover letter with that CV explaining why I wanted to work for that company. So I essentially ended up applying to a job that didn't exist yet. But I wanted to show that I was really interested. I was committed. It's not like it was just another company that I was applying to. And I just really wanted to show my dedication. And then I ended up getting an email. I met with people in the company. Again, at that time, they were not hiring, but I felt like it was important for me to get my face and my name out there just in case for the future. And then I got an email a couple weeks later saying that they wanted to extend an interview invite to me. So I definitely feel like that is one of those situations where it's not the norm. I think that being in a small town, helped. And I think that me just being I don't know if persistence is the right word. I don't know why it for some reason seems like I was being annoying to the company. Hopefully I wasn't, but I just knew I really wanted to work there based on what I had seen on their website, what I'd heard from them, and what I had heard from PT students in the area. And so I just tried really hard to make sure that they knew who I was and knew that I was an option and ready and willing to work whenever they needed me. So I actually didn't apply anywhere else. Now, the way my friends did it was some of my friends applied to a couple of jobs. They used Indeed.com primarily, I think. I think some people also used it might have been ZipRecruiter. I can't remember if you can apply. Yeah, I think you can apply to jobs through that website, obviously. Otherwise, how would the recruiters find you? So some people did that. Some people went through the actual websites for like hospital systems that they were interested in. So like Duke's, they probably went to Duke Hospital's website and looked to see if there were any careers open. So I know some people applied to a few jobs that they were really interested in. I know some people who applied to over 50 jobs because they really needed a job. I was very, very lucky and blessed and privileged that I got to live with family and that I don't pay rent, you know, and that there's like certain needs of mine that are taken care of because I live with family and because then I'm not paying extra for an entire other apartment. So I had the luxury of waiting a few extra months. So one of the questions was how long it took. I started my job early November. I think I interviewed maybe late September or sometime in October. So what is that? April, May, June, July, August, September, October. It's like 7 months. So it took a little while. And I had a friend of mine who told me she didn't get her dream job till like a year after graduating. And I thought that was crazy. And then now thinking about how it is taking an average of like 6 to 8 months for my friends and I to get jobs, I feel like that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, so I know people who applied to over 50 jobs and interviewed everywhere that gave them an interview. I was a little bit, I had the luxury of being a little bit more picky and knowing I wanted to work for a private practice, knowing that I wanted to work somewhere where we were treating one patient at a time, where I would have an hour with my patients for evals, things like that, that I had already kind of made a list of based on what I had seen in my rotations and what I did or did not want to carry over from my rotations to my first job. Did you negotiate your salary and are you happy with it? I did not negotiate my salary. I know it's one of those things that everywhere I read online was like, always negotiate salary, no matter what. And here was my thought process. One, I was just really glad to have a job offered to me in a pandemic, in a time where I was getting to a point where I was like, I need a job and like I might have to now move out of my parents' house and go somewhere else to start working. Otherwise, I'm never going to start my career. And my company has really good benefits. So I actually talked to a few of my mentors in the like outpatient ortho private practice space and said, here's what the salary offer is. Here are all the benefits. Like, would you negotiate? And they all actually were like, I don't know if I would. Like one of my professors even was like, your benefits are better than mine. So I was like, I don't know that I don't think the company would have been like, never mind, we're not giving you the job. But I didn't want to, I don't like any situation where I feel like I'm gonna like offend somebody. And that's not to say that salary negotiations do that. So everything I've seen online is negotiate your salary. I would say probably compare it against the benefits that you're getting. So to give you an idea of some of my benefits, like I get unlimited reimbursement for Con Ed or continuing education courses that are approved. I get, I think $1,000 a year to travel to continuing ed courses. So that would include travel to like conferences like CSM, which can get very expensive depending on where it is. My company covers my APTA membership as a new grad and an additional section. And I actually got 2 additional sections approved based on my clinical interests. That's a lot of money to spend as a new grad. I know a lot of people, the barrier to joining the APTA is cost. And so to join a company that values professional involvement and does so by, reimbursing you for that membership fee, that meant a lot to me. That was not money that, even as like a former APTA leader, even as an APTA scholar, that was not, I don't know, that would have hurt my wallet paying for that. Even though like rates are discounted for new grads and stuff, it was still hundreds of dollars where I was like, oh gosh, like I really need to get this over with and done. So it's really nice that they did that. And there's a bunch of other benefits too that I was like, this just really kind of feels unmatched to somewhere else. So I'm making, somebody asked me how much I'm making a lot less than a lot of my friends are. I'm also currently only working 30 hours a week. As my patient caseload grows and as I bring in more patients and as just, the demand for me grows, I'll go up to 40 hours a week and then my pay will increase as well. And at that time, I'll be making a little bit below what like the average is for the area, which is fine with me. Like I said, I am happy with my salary. I'm happy with my job. I'm living with my family. I live within walking distance of my job. So I really have no complaints. Did you address social justice and health equity in your interview? Yes, that is something that's really important to me. It was a non-negotiable. I needed to work somewhere where, one, they had like an anti-racism mindset. I didn't want to take a new job just to take a job and then be miserable there because I felt discriminated against or because I felt like my work family like didn't understand things that might be different for me as a minority than they are for them. And I wanted somewhere that was like dedicated to those causes and was showing that. And so without going into too much detail about like my current job, I got the sense that like that was a place I was going to be comfortable in. It was a place I could be myself, and they were putting money and time and like paid time off for their employees to get involved in the community, to give back, and to get involved in social justice initiatives, and to really just focus in on like how to be an anti-racist company and organization and clinic, and be a place that could truly be safe for all people. So yes, I did ask about that. I did kind of dig deep into like specifics about what my job was doing, and I was really happy with the answers, and it was something that I had never seen or heard before. So I definitely felt very blessed to be in that kind of environment. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently in your clinical rotations to prepare you for the hiring process? No. And I do not say that because I think I'm perfect and that I did everything right. But I will say I do think that I put a little more effort in my outpatient rotations into understanding what it was like as a PT, not just as a student. So as a student, while things definitely are challenging and you're figuring a lot of things out for the first time, there's a lot as a student that like I didn't have to do. So certain, even like certain documentation things I didn't have to do. And there's a lot of like logistical, administrative, leadership type stuff that obviously I wasn't responsible for as a student, but I knew my personality and I knew that I might be someone who would be interested in like leadership one day, or just interested in at least understanding the way that decisions were made in an outpatient practice. So I requested to sit in on like leadership meetings, whether it was like the clinic director meeting or just like a company-wide meeting. Anytime there was any sort of meeting or event or con ed course or anything, I asked if I could be there. Sometimes I was told no, and that was fine. I said, okay, thank you so much for asking about that. And then I moved on with my day. And I definitely think it was easier for me to do that because I was, living alone in a city where I didn't know anybody. So it's not like I had anything else to do. This was pre-COVID time. So I had the time and the opportunity and the space to be able to go in person to a lot of things. But I think that gave me an understanding of what like my clinical instructors and what my bosses at the time, like as a student, liked and didn't like. I took pretty diligent notes on all the different parts of like being a new grad in a place that I maybe otherwise wouldn't have realized. Like I was so focused in on the clinical information and on patient care that I didn't realize just how much more there is for me to ask about in my new grad interviews. And so I'm just glad that I, really paid attention to extra stuff. So if you're in rotations right now, if you're going to rotations soon, that is something that I would definitely recommend, is even if you're not interested and you don't go to a lot of extra stuff, at least take notes on what, your CIs tell you and ask them about working at that place and what they like, what they don't like, what they looked for in a new job, what they wish they would have asked about, because they're going to be a lot more experienced than I am. And I may even change my mind on some things as time goes on. So just stay in, close contact with people that you work with in your rotations, especially if it's a rotation in a setting that you think you might eventually want to work in. I think one more thing that helped me in my rotations was I just worked my butt off. Again, was living by myself, didn't have, a lot of home responsibilities, like nobody to come home to and kind of spend time with, which sounds very upsetting, but it actually, I think in terms of like patient care, helped me personally because I went in feeling like I didn't know anything. I didn't major in exercise science. I wasn't an athletic trainer. Not that you have to do those things, but I was just feeling kind of insecure about my clinical knowledge, especially my ortho and my sports knowledge. So every single patient that I had. I did a ton of research on. I took a bunch of notes on those patients and just spent a ton of time preparing every day. When I would go home after a day in the clinic, I would take notes on how I was going to progress certain exercises. I would write down everything my clinical instructors told me. So I just really paid attention. And I think that it's so interesting how much has stuck from the classroom and the clinic to now, and how much I do remember. Of course, I still have to review. I still have to study sometimes. I still have to do extra research into some of my patients' conditions, but it's nowhere near what I was anticipating. And I think it's because I really did put in the work while I was in school. Okay, this video is getting really long because I'm a talker. So let's go into mentorship. I think this was the one I got the most questions about, mentorship. How did you figure out which physios were most willing to mentor you in the clinic? That's easy. There's only one other person I work with, and she's wonderful, and she's always willing to mentor me. How do you make sure you get the mentorship that you need in the clinic? Well, one, I ask a lot of questions, and two, my company has a structured mentorship program. It's already set up, it's detailed, there's like journal articles and presentations and various other like information that's been put together into this giant binder. So that is something that my company already had set up, and I would highly recommend asking about in an interview. One of the things that we're taught to ask about in an interview is, does that place offer mentorship? But my experience is there's nowhere that's going to tell you no. I would be really surprised if a clinic to a new grad was like, oh no, you have to figure everything out yourself. So everywhere is going to offer mentorship, but I would look into exactly what does that look like. So I once interviewed somewhere where the person said, and this wasn't like an official job interview, I don't think, it was when I was still a student, but the person said, yeah, like whenever I have a question, I can go over to this coworker and I can just like ask them, and everyone here is really nice. That to me is not mentorship. That is happening to see a colleague is near you and you can go ask them some questions. How do I know that I'm not going to end up working in a situation where everyone's a new grad? You know, what if everyone leaves the company tomorrow and now all of us are in the same boat? What if that person is working with a patient at that time and it's not a good time to interrupt? And what if the question I have goes beyond something very generic and is specific to my patient, and now the person I'm asking doesn't have context, doesn't know this patient's history, and I'm putting this person's information out there, maybe like without their permission, so and like right in front of them. So that to me was not the mentorship that I was looking for. That might work for some people, but for me, I needed more one-on-one time with a person that was my designated mentor. So I would suggest, if that's something that you also feel like you need, just ask follow-up questions after you ask if there's mentorship and say, what does it look like? Is there structured time away from patients for you to talk to your mentor, talk about what's going on in the clinic, and even like what your goals are professionally, leadership-wise, research-wise, teaching-wise. Like, is there time set aside to where you can truly get to know your mentor and they can get to know you, versus just if you get lucky and find someone who can help answer a question in the moment, then that's the mentorship. So I'm not trying to like rag on those places, but because like I said, it works for some people. Some people want more autonomy. Some people want more just freedom to not have someone mentoring them, but that's not my style. Love autonomy, love freedom. I have all of that. And also I have a very structured mentorship program to look forward to. So that starts in the new year. Until then, any question I ever have, my mentor is amazing and will answer in depth and like give me extra resources and like give me anecdotes and like tell me about some of her past patients who've had like similar conditions to help me kind of solidify that information in my mind. So it's been great. Again, I got very lucky. I don't know how common some of that stuff is, just me being a new grad and only interviewing here. But yeah, I would say go a little deeper than just, you know, do you have mentorship available? How do you get used to not having a CI with you? I feel like for me, being in an outpatient setting now and having had 6 months of outpatient ortho experience, by the end of that 6 months, I felt like I was kind of ready to not have a CI right there watching everything that I was doing, because while my CIs were great, I definitely felt less confident trying things that like may or may not work. So everything I do has a rationale behind it. And sometimes some things work for some patients and they don't for others. But as a student under a CI, I felt like I couldn't take as many risks. Under some CIs, like I felt like I was spending more time having to kind of justify certain things rather than actually treating the patient. And so for me, I was pretty much ready to be like a real PT by myself. And like I said, I know that I have a mentor in the clinic who is there to answer questions for me when I need them. But I like the challenge of now kind of being on my own and trying some things out, seeing if certain techniques I've seen in the clinic or read about or whatever work. So it wasn't a huge adjustment for me to get used to not having a CI with me. I miss my CIs very much, and like I said, they were great. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but I sobbed really, really bad at a going away party I threw for myself after my ortho rotations because I knew I was going to miss everybody so much. Great experience to have, really fun also now to kind of be the PT in the room, like being the adult in the room. Do you feel like you need someone to guide you with certain aspects of treatment? Sure. I think as a new grad, there's always going to be things where I'm going to need help, especially like I said, a lot of my patients are a lot more either complex or have conditions I had never heard about before they came to me. And so of course there are times that, I'm going to have to ask for help, but there's no aspect of treatment or an eval or anything like that I feel like consistently I'm needing help with. Like I don't always need help with manual therapy techniques, or I don't always need help with crafting my like subjective interview list. But yeah, I mean, every day I think I ask at least one question, if not more, about certain patients or just like things in general. So like I don't have a ton of experience treating runners, but it's something I'm very interested in, and it's something my boss is very, very good at and known for. And so sometimes I just have like generic questions of like things I've heard, things I've seen on social media. I want to know if they're true, what her experience is like. So I mean, this may change as I get more patients as well, but no, I don't think that there are certain aspects of treatment that I've like identified where I'm like, I always need help with this. One more question is, did you have sufficient mentorship before starting on your own? Yes, in the form of my clinical rotations. So I would say that was my like official mentorship before I started treating patients on my own. I also shadowed at the job that I'm currently at before I started, kind of to understand what it was going to be like to work at that company, but also just to get back into a clinic and see an eval being done and seeing patients with certain conditions being treated, just because it had been so long since I'd been in a PT clinic. And I didn't spend a lot of my off time this summer studying because I felt like it was kind of studying without a true kind of purpose or goal in mind. And so I was more likely to forget certain things. So I took some time off, took a break, plus I was studying for boards. But yeah, so it wasn't like I had a ton of like one-on-one mentorship with my first week of patients, but the ramp up process was pretty slow for me. So that certainly helped. I had a lot of time to reflect on every patient that came in. Okay, now we're going to go into talking about the third category, confidence. First question that came in was, do you still ask for help, and are the other PTs receptive? Yes and yes. Do you get nervous with new patients? How do you stay confident in your abilities? I don't get as nervous with new patients now as I used to. I used to pray in my head that an eval wouldn't show up when I was in my rotations, not my job. But when I was in my first ortho rotation and I knew I was going to have an eval, even if I knew like a week in advance, that day and around the time where they were supposed to come in, I would be like saying silent prayers in my head that like, please let them have forgotten that their eval is today. Please let them have gone to a different clinic. Like, please let them have gotten better spontaneously and they don't need PT anymore. I hated evals. I hated everything about having to meet a new person. As much as I am an extrovert and love to meet new people, it was very scary to me, and I felt like in the beginning, like I did not want people asking questions. So I always asked people if they had questions, but I would always again say a silent prayer that they wouldn't ask me anything, because it was a smaller clinic and my CI was right there and he could hear everything I was saying, which is obviously great. Like that is the environment you should be in as a student. And I think that's why I'm now more confident, because I was put through that, but it was not comfortable and I did not enjoy that. And I think because I went through 6 months of that, I even by like the last week of that 6 months, I was still getting nervous with new people coming in. I was still nervous about the fact that like my evals were definitely taking a lot longer, but now I feel okay with new people coming in, honestly. Even like when people come in with body part issues that like I'm not as comfortable treating, or, you know, something that I don't have a ton of experience with, I don't feel that bad. And I think it's because for me, like an eval is a lot about just getting to know the person and learning their story. And it's a lot about education. And I feel more confident answering questions now because I've had a lot more time where I've been doing that. And I think that's just going to continue to grow. I think the more I learn, the more I'm going to realize I don't know. So then I'll just keep learning. So I by no means think that I have all the answers, and I don't think I even have the right answer sometimes when I think that I do. Like I'm sure I've made mistakes. I just ran out of breath while I was talking. But I've learned that everything doesn't have to happen in that initial eval. I don't need to figure everything out then. I don't need to do all the parts of an upper or lower quarter screen right then. I can get at what I think I need to know, give the person as much education as possible so that they understand what to expect, so that I can know what their goals are, so that I can then plan the next session accordingly. So really, I think my evals go the first 2 sessions, and I will even tell patients that like, hey, we may find out more as we go on, and then we'll just adjust our plan accordingly, especially if they're in a lot of pain the very first session. I'm not going to put them through the ringer and like put them through a ton of different tests and put them in a ton of different positions when they are just in so much pain. So yeah, so I don't really get nervous now. And I think I stay confident just by reminding myself that like, as long as I'm screening for like red flags, like things that are going to be dangerous, as long as I'm taking vitals, so I take blood pressure with every new patient, and heart rate, and as long as I communicate with that patient that like, hey, we may not know everything today, or I may not be able to give you like a diagnosis or a label. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I think we can work on. Here's what I've seen work for other patients. And I go from there. So really, evals to me are just a giant conversation with some movement components where I get to know a little bit more about their body and just how it responds to various positions, tests, and movements. Okay, this last set of questions is going to be regarding just the job itself, life as a new grad, and miscellaneous things. Was it tough adjusting from student to clinician? Not as tough as I thought it was going to be. So I would say if you are in this position where you're a new grad, you're looking for a job, you're about to start a new job, just started a new job, I would say that we really do know a lot more than we think we do. And typically we know more about recovery and rehab than our patients do. And that's not like a power differential thing. That's not any reason to be like arrogant, right? Or elitist above our patients, but it's to give us confidence that we just spent 2 to 3 years, whether you're a PT, PTA student in a hybrid program, whatever, you just spent a good chunk of time studying to do this job. And there is always going to be more to learn. So I think that's what helps me a lot too. And I think maybe that's why I don't get as nervous in my evals. When I asked all of my friends who are PTs who've been out for a few years now, when it was that they really felt like they knew what they were doing, every single person said 1.5 years. 1.5 years is a decent amount of time, right? And so that time is going to pass anyway. It might as well pass with me doing my best, not being super hard on myself, which could then make me a worse therapist, right? It could make it so that it's hindering the care that I can provide to my patients. So I feel like I keep myself at just enough like anxiety and stress to like fuel me to then do the research and get to know my patients better, and even do things that like are going to help me connect with them better. So like learning that one of my patients likes to read sci-fi, like I've been reading a lot more lately, and now there's more sci-fi books in my rotation so that I can then go back and talk to my patient about it. So even just like little things like that aren't clinical and are like not as stressful as like studying. So no, it hasn't been hard because I know that I'm so early in my career. I think if I was 10 years out and feeling like I knew literally nothing, then yeah, I might be a little bit concerned about going into a new job, but no. It's going to take time. Like a year and a half from now, ask me again how I'm doing, and hopefully I'll say, oh, I finally know what I'm doing a little bit, maybe. And that doesn't mean that like I'm not helping people, right? Like people got better in my rotations when I was a student. So why couldn't people get better now that I'm a clinician and have like had more time to think about things and am a more confident person just in general? So I would say anyone who is having a tough time adjusting to being a clinician for like confidence reasons or just like clinical knowledge reasons, one, you know, we have to put in the work, we have to study, we have to take con ed courses for the rest of our life as a practitioner. We're always getting new information, research is always changing, et cetera, et cetera. So our bodies are weird. Sometimes rehab is just a weird, messy process. So I would say we have to put in the work. We have to recognize that it just takes time. Sometimes it just takes experience, and we will get that as long as we are dedicated. And I think just being a person who is content with yourself outside of the clinic, I think will help you a lot in the clinic. So even just learning to be more confident in my body, in my fashion sense, in my faith, in my family, in where I'm at, like mentally, helps me a lot to then transfer all of that confidence and just like contentment into then clinical care. Just like it's easy for us to take things home with us from the clinic and carry kind of that emotional burden with us. I think the reverse can be true, where however you're doing in your outside life can then carry over into the clinic. And luckily so far things have been okay. Is it hard to balance the work-home life? Not yet. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job filming a YouTube video on a Saturday morning currently, and don't really have any plans for the rest of the day other than to read. So no, it's not hard. I do everything work related at work, and when I come home, when there's things to be done for work that I need to do at home, I do them. Like I don't ever really get my notes done at work if I have a decently full schedule. So I will have to do that at work, but like I thought I was gonna have to do that anyway before coming into this job. Like I've never been in an ortho setting where I was doing notes where I didn't then have to do notes later, like and have to finish them like the next day or stay late that night or whatever. So that wasn't something that like, that's not hard for me, I guess, because I anticipated it. So it's been great. When I come home, I get to spend time with family. I get to focus on them. I get to read. I get to work out still. My clinic schedule is really nice. And like I said, I'm only working 30 hours right now. So I think once that goes up to 40, like, hey, maybe it'll be a little bit more difficult, but I'll anticipate that. So I'll know kind of how to adjust my schedule to still get in like my home life and then do work stuff at work. How much time do you spend on documentation, and is it more or less than you expected? I think that's about what I expected. I spend maybe 10 minutes per note. When it's just like a daily note, I spend maybe 25 minutes to 30 minutes on an eval note. I am sure that with time, that time is going to decrease. I triple and quadruple check my notes just because right now I just want to make sure I'm not making any mistakes that are like avoidable, any like simple, stupid mistakes. And it's a new software, so I didn't use this documentation software in my rotations. There's still some things I'm getting used to. There's still some like billing things I'm getting used to, and like either didn't have to worry about it as a student or they were just different. So yeah, I think I spent about as much time on documentation as I thought I would. Eval notes are always harder. They always take more time. I'm never like up really late at night doing my notes, anything like that. So yeah, documentation really hasn't been as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think most people, when you ask them, like most clinical people, like what's the worst part of the job, most people are going to be like documentation. So there's really nothing I dislike about my job at all. I absolutely love it. I feel so grateful and blessed. Like I look forward to going into work. If I absolutely had to choose something as a PT in general, as a new grad that I don't like doing, it's documentation, which who loves that? If you love documentation, come talk to me because I need to know your secrets. Someone asked, how exhausted do you feel? I feel extremely blessed. I do not feel exhausted. I feel fine. I get an hour with each patient. That's plenty of time to me to get to know them if it's an eval. Like I said, I always will find out new things in the second, third, fourth visit. And then with my other patients who I already know, already have a little bit of a connection with, I know kind of where we're going. So I don't have to spend a ton of time planning in advance. And I go based on how they feel when they come in. So if a patient comes in and says, I absolutely cannot do anything up on my feet today, they are in so much pain and I cannot stand without wanting to cry, then any plan I would have had beforehand of like, we're going to do this walking exercise and this balance exercise, like all of that would have been out the window anyway. So I feel like I have plenty of time with my patients to kind of talk them through things, understand where they're coming from, understand where they are that day, and then mentally form a plan for what we're going to do that day. Again, with time, I think I'm going to keep getting better at those things. But I don't feel tired again, because I anticipate not being at the like peak of my career in month 2 now. So I'm coming on 2 months in a job, and I was thinking about it and I was like, man, I've had 6 months in outpatient ortho and now I'm already 2 months into this job and I just feel like I could be doing a lot better. But like a couple things to consider. 1, I haven't started my formal mentorship program yet. And 2, is there really any other job where you go to grad school for a few years and then start the job where I would think, wow, that person is really not doing a good job because they're not great at it in 2 months. Like my friends who went to law school, if they were 2 months into a job as a new lawyer, like I would be telling them like, you were only 2 months in, like you have a lot to learn. You have a lot of time left to learn those things and like to get good at this. My friends who went to medical school, like when they are residents or physicians, like I don't expect them to like know everything about everything even after residency, just 2 months in. There's a lot of things to get used to when you're in a new company with new people and like just new ways of doing things. 2 months has been a really great amount of time to like get comfortable there, but I wouldn't expect myself to like be great at being a physical therapist in 2 months. I have time to get better. I know I'm doing everything that I can right now to be the best physical therapist I can be for my patients. And I think that's what matters, is just maintaining really good communication with them, doing everything I can for them to get them the services that they need. And, you know, just knowing that like there are things that might happen this first year and a half or first 10 years, you know, first 2 decades of my career that are going to be mistakes that don't go well, but I'm going to learn from them. And then I'm going to later be able to remedy that and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So I think as long as I can anticipate that that's how things are going to be for me, I'm fine with it. And, you know, mistakes and tripping up and, you know, having to learn from various obstacles that I come across, none of that's going to be a surprise to me. So that is the mindset that I'm in currently. Hopefully it's something I can maintain because I think it's working for me. And yeah, I'm very happy in my new job. I really appreciate all of you asking me all these questions. I'm trying to think if there's anything that my friends have done that feels a little bit different. I've had some friends that feel, you know, like more overwhelmed with their schedules. They're seeing more patients than maybe they can handle, or they have certain expectations from higher ups that they don't feel like they can meet, especially just a couple months into a new job. So they've had to kind of advocate for themselves and meet with leadership and talk through those things. So, you know, that may also come up. You may have to learn to advocate for yourself and ask for what you need. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, your first job doesn't always have to be your forever job. And you are allowed to leave a new job and for a different one that might be better for you. I've had friends leave new jobs that they were not even 2 weeks into because a new, better opportunity came up. And I think that is perfectly okay. One other thing I was going to mention was I had mentioned that friends had gone through like various hiring websites to find jobs. One other way that my friends found jobs that I didn't think to mention earlier was some of my friends are doing residencies. So that's another option too, is if you're interested in a residency. Residencies are intense, but if you are like super committed to your field of study and really want to get better, want guaranteed mentorship, want guaranteed patient care hours with patients with all different types of conditions to then sit for whatever, like board specialty exam or board certification exam, then that's another option too. So I have some friends doing residencies and they knew that they'd gotten in pre-COVID, so they kind of had a guaranteed job. Now, again, nothing in life is guaranteed. I've also had classmates who had residencies canceled and they then were deferred to like next year. And I've also heard of some residencies just being canceled kind of outright. Again, nothing in life is guaranteed. I think being prepared for the fact that like this is a very crazy time, it's a very difficult time, and you know, just giving yourself a lot of grace and recognizing that like just because you can't get a job right now, just because you can't get an interview right now, it says nothing about the type of therapist that you are or will be. It means nothing about your personality or, you know, you not being a good candidate. There just aren't the same number of jobs available right now. It is really tough. I know, again, like I've said before, how incredibly blessed and lucky I am to have landed a job that I love and to have landed a job at all right now. You know, I hope that this video was helpful. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can either drop your questions down in the comment section here on YouTube, or you're welcome to DM me at the DPT Diaries on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time, and I'm constantly answering questions on there, and I'm happy to do so. All the best of luck to you. Like I said, I know it's a really tough time right now. Just stick with it, have hope. You are in my thoughts and in my prayers, and I just hope the absolute best for you. And I hope that you are able to land a job and to love that job to the full extent of your heart. Okay, enough mushy stuff. I have to go because clearly my voice is giving out on me and I'm almost out of coffee, so I have to go grab some more. So please do subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more. That way you'll never miss an update from the DPT Diaries. Please like this video if you did indeed like it. Go follow me at the DPT Diaries on Instagram. That's where I post most of my updates, and also on my blog, www.thedptdiaries.com. All right, good luck with the job search, everyone. Good luck with everything else. I hope you all are happy and healthy and well and safe, and I will see you in the next one.